And welcome back to match point in the series between Rogue and Misfits. Rogue up 2-1. A strong start for Misfits in Game 1 was not enough to stop Rogue in their tracks when it came to Games 2 and 3.
And if you're a Misfits fan, or if you're a League of Legends fan and you want to see this one go the distance, I think Misfits need to reevaluate the strategy. They can no longer play into Rogue style. Playing this wave clear, Azir, Corki, BS, back and forth, that is not going to be the Misfits way to secure them a victory. If you're a Rogue fan, run it back, because it is so free and so easy right now. So if Misfits want a chance, we want the Silver Scrapes, we need to see some sort of crazy pick, up-tempo game. You're looking for mid-game power spikes.
And I want to see if the bans change up at all from the side of Misfits, if they're willing to let more of these OP champions or the perceived OP champions through so that they can get their pick of the litter, so that they can prioritize something that they've had more practice on. Because I'll say that the drafts have been, at their core, very similar in Games 2 and 3. Corki Azir, the most obvious indicator, but I think clearly giving Finn a winning top slate matchup is more than enough for Rogue to take over an entire game.
I'd actually like to see them leave the Syndra open, in particular Misfits, and see if Rogue actually just pick it. And if it goes into the mid lane, the analyst just called for the Echo, the fact that it can be flexed mid and jungle position, since Razork is known for his Echo jungle, or into that Syndra to counter. And if Hans takes the Syndra, then, take the defensive weak side matchup for Misfits. Try to grab that Tahm Kench Aphelios or that Tahm Kench Varus and just push waves back and forth. But I don't want to see Misfits ban it again.
It's just so crazy because the focus on bot lane we called out is so uncharacteristic of the Misfits team. And they were so good at playing around topside when we look at their win streak in the regular season. And they've just, it feels like, lost that spark up against Misfits. And maybe it's just that they're not drafting to set themselves up for success in that regard. But I remember Dan Dan putting the hurt down, even if Misfits weren't finding the wins, onto the side of Finn, and now it just feels like Finn has got his number every single time.
Yeah, and if you go back to Week 5, the last time Misfits and Rogue faced outside of this best-of series, Misfits' game plan was absolutely to try to crush Finn. Now, ultimately, Rogue did slow the pace of the game down, extend it into a Larssen Azir victory, and kind of won out on back-end team fights, but the early game at least was competitive for Misfits because they did attack Finn. So I would like to see them go back to that style, and I think an issue is that they haven't had winning 2v2 top sides to really try to make it count.
But we'll see if maybe the power of first pick can get them that winning top side. Can't imagine anything too strong to just blind pick it straight up, but we've seen Finn Denyk to do some work, so maybe Misfits have something similar planned. For now, the Syndra remains banned FLICKR, and they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with that flex pick, and it's Senna on the opposite side for Rogue.
But already a deviation here, banning the Pantheon instead of the Yuumi. Now again, the priority pick has been Aphelios when the likes of Syndra, Kalista, and Senna have been banned. So if this is a Renekton ban for Misfits, I expect that to be the instant snap grab first pick, unless, I don't know, maybe they got something special planned. Now's the time to bring it out. It's do or die, Misfits.
I mean, yeah, if you're holding anything back, if you walk away from the series with a special pick that you didn't use, you're going to feel, well, pretty stupid about the time that you invested there. I like that they're banning the Pantheon, though. I like this adaptation. Inspired, obviously, doing a lot of work on the pick, and I think both teams kind of forgetting about its power in the first 2 games. Yuumi remains banned out, which is really surprising to me, to be completely honest. Yuumi Ezreal, I understand, is very, very strong, but it doesn't feel game-breaking. However, once again, we do see Misfits set themselves up for the Aphelios. They pair it with the Tahm Kench. It's a bot side that doesn't necessarily need attention, and it could be a good start for a more powerful top side.
I'm with you, Dracos. I feel like the Yuumi, I mean, something must be happening. This team must know something that we do not. But I would have let that one fall through, as because they didn't ban the Renekton. Finn grabs that one. I did appreciate the Alawi hover, however.
There have been rumors of the solo queue Alawi.
I prepped so much Alawi, and I was like, Finn's been playing it. I'm ready to talk about it. He just flashes it. It's fine.
Look, FLICKR, and you said in previous drafts that technically the Renekton could be a flex pick, so don't let your hopes die out quite yet.
Not with how dominant Finn has been on that pick.
I'm trying to give you something here. I'm trying to give you some kind of little sliver of hope that all those hours you put into learning about Alawi can be valuable here. For now, it's sad Razork hovering on the Amumu for as long as possible before he swaps over to the set. Now, Dan Dan has been very successful on the set in the past, and it has been something that Finn has struggled against, but of course, still technically a flex pick here.
Yep, pretty standard. We do expect that to go up to Dan Dan, but like you said, technically a flex, and it is going to not be the Tahm Kench, but the Thresh. So Thresh pairs really well with Misfortune. It's one of the picks that you usually pair with her if you can't get the Rakan or the Leona to run more of a kill-oriented lane. So still quite a defensive bot lane for Misfits, but then also allowing Denyk to get his roam on and use that death sentence hopefully around the mid lane.
Sort of the middle ground between a pick like the Nautilus that we see hovered here and the Tahm Kench, something a little bit for everybody. But I think pressure on Denyk to kind of make his presence known if he is going to swap away from the Tahm Kench, because you are going to be hurting on the bottom side without that Devour when you're going up against the absolutely brutal kill lane of Nautilus plus Misfortune.
Yeah, and depending what the jungle pick is, there could also be an Inspired that you throw into that mix. But yeah, the Nautilus ultimate duration of like airtime while the Misfortune bullet time is rocking across you, that's pretty insta-death, if that's how the combo works down.
And that's before we even know what the jungler is. And every single pro-viable jungler outside of Kindred, if you consider that viable, is going to bring some kind of CC to the table. Except for Olaf, but Death is the best CC, so that's why Olaf's good.
Hashtag bless up, Azir is banned.
Finally, we have returned to the glory era of mid lane where we no longer have to watch champions farm.
The only way this gets better is if Corki gets banned. Then we have Zoe, Azir, LeBlanc, and Corki all banned. That's the only way this gets better.
Here's what I bet you. Corki will not get banned, and we're going to get Corki Victor in the mid lane instead.
Don't do me like that.
The other great piece of the trinity of boring mids.
Okay, Corki's open. What's going to be the jungle pick? Olaf's gone. You still got... I mean, you could technically take Elise if you wanted, and then you'd have the Renekton-Elise combo.
I really like this hover. I'm getting excited about it. I won't talk about it. I'll wait till it gets locked in. You're right. Renekton Elise up and available. Gragas also still on the table. We've seen him banned a lot in this series.
It needs to be an AP jungler. It's not going to be Graves.
You can hope.
No.
But you're right. The Gragas is going to get locked in, so now even more CC, even more difficult for Bvoy really to survive in these fights. It's very hard to be in Aphelios without a Tahm Kench on your team. And Thresh, you said it before, the Lantern can save him, but that's a lot of CC to be saved from.
And this is going to be a pretty easy pickup for Sejuani for Razork, knowing that it's into Gragas. Decent chub, and then also Razork's probably best champion, at least that he's shown outside of his Echo, I feel has been his Sejuani and just how important it is. He's been avoiding it throughout this series, but now gets his hands on it.
Bvoy has picked up the Sejuani for Razork, as you mentioned. Now we can see what the final pick is here. They're taking their time. It's not too late for ultra boring farm mid lane. Febiven has to blind pick something. This is what sucks about being on blue side of the situation, is that this is probably the time where most people would logically say...
Okay. I was going to say he'd probably go Orianna. Technically, that's a flex pick, though, having the Rumble and the set. You can still, depending on what matchup you want. And then you're also going to get decent mid priority with a Rumble if it is a Rumble mid.
I also love the Rumble because it does still have that synergy with Sejuani. Obviously not the most prominent melee champion, as he lacks a significant gap closer, but can do a lot of work there. And here we go. That is a lot of beefy boys on the side of the Rogue lineup. Hansama going to be needing to bring the majority of the damage, him or Finn. Misfits going to have to deal with a lot of tanks. They have a Rumble who's very good at killing tanks with that lean injuries, but I feel like Rogue are showing us something special here.
We wished for this, Strakos. We thought that we had the world on a platter when Azir and Zoe got banned, and we end up with Rumble Ornn.
It's the actual dream. Melee champions have to die in laning phase. It's like a rule.
To farm, you must be put into death's harm.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much explicitly. Especially
Now,
when you're a Rumble.
Obviously, it's super easy for Ornn to itemize no matter what his opponent is, because he either goes Sunfire first or he goes Abyssal Mass first. So I don't expect Larssen to be cracked into this lane or to die at all. Now, that said, there's not a lot of 2v2 strength, so I think Rogue's pretty telegraphed that this is all about the top and bot side for Gragas gang, so we'll keep our eyes on Inspired's pathing to see where he ends up. Or on the other side for Misfits, a big window for level 6 power. I think that's pretty obvious. The Sejuani ultimate, the Rumble ultimate, that's when things will really turn online for them. So kind of the initial 1 through 5 level, eyes on Inspired. As soon as we took over into 6, that's when Misfits really got to start making those ultimates count.
And need to find out, do they have what it takes to pull ahead, to throw a curveball at Rogue, to not let Rogue sit back and scale as we enter match point Rogue 2-1 over Misfits. It's the do or die series for both these teams, and it's the do or die game for Misfits. Will they take us to game 5 and let us hear the sound of silver scrapes, or will their road end here? So we're going to have to find out.
Yeah, this is it. Someone's spring split will come to an end. If you're a Misfits fan, if you're a Silver Scrapes fan, I'm looking at Razork and Febiven. These have been the two guys that have stood tall over the course of the regular split that when push came to shove, they were able to pull out the crazy plays and have their hard carry moments. And at level 6, they're definitely set up to do that. And then on the other side, if you're a Rogue fan, you got everything that you want. You're basically unmovable in a lot of these lanes. Inspired has gank potential virtually in every lane if he does want to take a visit towards Ornn because of the CC and the brittle damage. So he's got his pick of the litter about where he could attack on the map for Rogue.
And it's important to know kind of the pressure on Misfits to show us more, because it's not just this split that has been up and down. It has been an up and down 2 years. 7th in spring 2018, 4th in summer 2018. You think maybe things are getting better. 8th and then 9th in 2019. Misfits are a team that have seen the top. They've gone to Worlds. They've almost taken down SKT, and they've most certainly seen the bottom. And so the Cinderella story could be very real if they can find a win, if they can get further into playoffs. But otherwise, it could just be another year of, honestly, mediocrity if they can't show us more.
Again, both of these teams have tasted victory, and it makes them starved for recognition. They both want to prove that it wasn't a fluke, that they are top teams in the LEC, and that means that they have to win here after stumbling in the last hurdle of the regular split.
So pressure's on here in the early game, and you already talked about it. Level 6, where we expect things to happen, most certainly where Rogue expect things to happen as well. So maybe Misfits throw a curveball early, try to get something done. Obviously, champion limitations are a real thing. You don't really get to outplay those, but maybe a bit of creativity could help Misfits go a long way. For now, a bit of early pressure for Febiven does mean he gets extra vision down. Misfits need to find an advantage as quick as they can, I feel like. Because despite the fact that there aren't scaling compositions on both sides, I still feel like late game, I just trust Rogue more to execute.
It still feels like there's a bunch of like beef kicks that are going to be running at each other, doesn't it? All the champions around. Razork, like you said, you called it out. Febiven peeked around. He had priority, so they got some vision on the Raptor camp, so it's fairly easy to track where Inspired is in terms of his jungle rotation, which is why Razork steps up. He did walk over a ward, however, so Inspired knows that he's coming and has set the trap.
Inspired just gonna back off here, though. Body slam in. We'll break the passive there. They don't want to push for anything else. Now Dan Dan coming out on top here in the early trades for now, keeping the pressure up as well with that haymaker. Makes it very easy for him to push in the waves.
Look at Vander.
Oh, I like this. That's a spicy play in the mid lane.
So Febiven, good cross-map communication from Misfits as a whole, because Febiven almost like instantly read that, started standing towards the top side of his map, recognizing that his bot lane called Vander missing, or at least that's what I'm going to assume happened.
I like to assume it's Sixth Sense and that Febiven's a superhuman, but you know, to each their own.
Spidey senses.
Spidey sense. Of course, yeah, I think in that communication from Misfits is what we want to see more of, and something that we can kind of expect, especially from a duo like Denyk and Razork. You've talked a lot about how crucial they are for this team. They're guys with a lot of history playing in the Spanish League together on Vodafone Giants before they were picked up by this Misfits lineup. And we kind of, I think, need to see them elevate to the next level of calling and of coordination here in this early game to pull it.
I mean, it's unfortunate that, not unfortunate, Carzzy had like an amazing series against G2, so kind of in this race of like rookie of the split between Razork and Carzzy. I think Kaiser's name definitely should be in there as well. Razork kind of got the raw end of it here in the fact that this playoff series hasn't been as explosive as the G2 versus Mad one. And it's also like really hard to separate what is Razork standing up and kind of being his own versus like what Febiven is providing him, because it's super easy to shine as a jungler when you're just like spoon feeding kills into probably the third best mid laner's mouth repeatedly. And Razork was just set up for so much success in this like refinement between Febiven and Amazing as his coach. Like Amazing, really strong Sejuani. I don't think it's any coincidence then that Razork also then shows up with a super strong Sejuani.
No, not at all. And of course, Vander just barely missing the hook there. Could have been a bigger fight. I think it's important to point out because the votes close before the playoff series start, right? So Razork is a guy on the list who could still win, but it would just, I think, leave a bitter taste in your mouth to win and then see a guy like Carzzy and a guy like Kaiser get so much further than you in playoffs. I can't speak for him, but to me, I think it would feel almost empty. And that's a terrible thing to wonder in a series like this.
Yeah, but Razork certainly had his big moment in the middle of the split. I feel like recency bias will always kind of skew the conversation for a lot of those like all-pro teams and rookie of the split situations there, because everyone's thinking like, oh, but I just saw G2 got smashed. How dare they be an all-pro? Yeah, but it's like, if you remember, they were destroying teams in the middle of the split.
Still G2 until proven otherwise, aka knocked out of playoffs. So we'll hold on that one. And I think in this game, we're once again in this position where we're waiting. And we have level 6s coming in for both the Ornn and the Rumble. Obviously big catalysts for action themselves, but now Razork getting closer and closer to that level 6 himself. And sadly for Misfits, because Febiven's getting pushed back here and he wants this good back timing, he uses the ult pretty aggressively. And that means it won't be available for any immediate action or team fights.
I mean, that's fine. You're waiting for kind of blue to spawn, which is what Rogue are setting up. They want contest on second spawn. So using the fact that Febiven doesn't have ultimate, they just sought use for wave clear, and they have priority to make this play top.
Big Ornn ult, flash out from Dan Dan. Inspired's here as well with the Predator. Rest of Misfits were ready to respond, but good look from the side of Rogue, getting that flash out. Pretty consequence-free, don't have to burn any of their own, just giving up 2 ultimates between Finn and Larssen.
Yeah, but now we're going to have a desync of ultimates where there's going to be a potential window that Rumble will have access to his, and hopefully Razork will also get level 6, and Larssen might not have his backup.
It's important to note, and you can see I like Denyk and Razork continuing to move together. Rogue setting up around the dragon here. And difficult. Hans obviously always going to be first on this rotation in the early game when he has that power of strut just to roam as quickly as possible. So like kind of making his presence more known than you would normally expect an AD carry to be tethered to that bot side tower.
Misfits being really cautious, however, here. They had eyes that Inspired was in the river, and they didn't even want to play with it. I think if this was earlier in the series, maybe Misfits go for that play, but because there are backs against the wall, no more second chances, they actually play that one out really patient and slow. They wait until they have push priority in the bot lane, and then they slowly move back into the river, which it's small things, and I think that was the correct play, but just taking note of kind of the difference if you start to see some nerves or maybe some plays that Misfits would have normally gone for that they don't this time around.
Because it's obviously, you said, right in that situation, but is it the kind of playstyle we want to see from Misfits all game? Potentially not. Have to find out for now. Good news is Misfits are going to get their hands on this first Drake, the Cloud Drake. Happy to have that ultimate cooldown reduction. Normally I'm not excited about Cloud, but when your team consists of a Rumble, a Set, and a Sejuani, it's a damn good Drake to have.
Yeah, and that was the small window that we alluded to previously, the fact that there was desyncs in the ultimates between Ornn and Rumble. Misfits feel really confident not only that they had the priority pushing in the bot lane, but they had access to the Rumble ult that came back up. Razork was the level 6, and so like, that's fine, we can rock into River because Larsen's ult is just now coming off the cooldown, so they felt confident in their teamfight advantage.
And this is the first time since game 1 that we've seen Dan Dan put in a position where he's not just bleeding out on the top side of the map as well, which is just another thing going in favor of Misfits, or at least improving from the previous game, because he was getting smacked around. It was not a pretty thing to watch, but seemingly much more comfortable in this Set versus Renekton matchup.
Yeah, and he hasn't gotten a lot of attention. You know, Inspired hasn't been up there. We talked about one of the potentials is that you're teaming up an AP jungler with an AD top laner, and you can continue to kind of double down on the success that Finn has had on this pick. But Dan Dan's done a good job of keeping himself safe, and Inspired really hasn't poked his head up there outside of that attempted dive when Larssen decided to roam.
It's interesting too because Finn opted for this, opted for this Renekton going in. Of course, it bought the pick later for Larssen to get the Ornn as a potential counter, but it not working out is not ideal.
This is important in that Hans has pulled off of the bot lane, obviously using that movement speed of the strut, getting there first. Bvoy decided to clear out the wave and is now starting to move. Aphelios will be late to this, so while Rogue at the disadvantage of starting the Herald first, or excuse me, Misfits had that advantage that Rogue started it first. They have the advantage of having all 5 members there ready to go.
Smite should be able to take it down, but immediately the Rumble Equalizer comes out onto Vander, the most vulnerable member on the team, but Larssen now looking to turn it. Vander flashing out to safety for now, but Bvoy is on the backside. He's got the setup as well with the Caliber. Anyone who walks in that turret is going to be taking a lot of damage, but Finn at his strongest just dives forward. The Lantern coming out for the disengage. Misfits making their way out of that play unscathed and taking down Vander in the process.
By the skin of his teeth, Febiven manages to get the dark passage to safety. Now, all said and done, they trade First Blood in Set's pocket for the Herald that Inspired now has access to. And again, by the skin of their teeth, they got away with that, because it was almost a one, if not a 2-for-1 trade in favor of Rogue.
Vander stepping forward there, taking the ult. Hansama able to survive in this fight at first. Looks very bad, but a good flash out there. Roster, this very much could have been bad. I thought Finn was going to go for the double here, killing Febiven and then killing Bvoy quite easily, but they are, just as you said, inch of their life able to make it out.
Yeah, Bvoy taking the flash and Febiven taking the lantern to safety right there. So now question is, where do Rogue want to attack with this Herald? Do you try to snowball into the Misfortunes pocket? You still got plenty of time that you can make access to these plates. Maybe Inspired finally does spend some time up onto the top side of the map, try to kill Dan Dan, and then use the Herald to snowball and springboard Finn so he can be a menace onto these side lanes.
Difficult to do, of course, but very much possible, especially because when you look at Dan Dan's itemization, he's opted for the coal. He's 50 stacks in. Once he gets that cash out, he should find himself with a decent gold lead just kind of automatically from itemization choice, and now has the Cutlass in addition to the Bomby Cinder. So it looks like we're on the race to the Blade of the Rune King here on the top side of the map. It's going to be one obnoxious sustain fest there.
So Rogue are actually doing a really good job matching the 3-man plays by Misfits onto mid lane. That's like the 4th time that Denyk and Razork have showed around Febiven. And that's pretty stylistically like what Misfits like to do. You don't normally see Rogue necessarily play this. Usually, again, it's unlocking Vander and then moving him to a side lane to play 3-man there. So Vander obviously roaming a ton and kind of returning to what we saw more in 2019 Rogue. I felt like Vander used to roam a lot more and then just kind of got locked more into lane.
Was the case, and now Misfits looking efficient to set up a play. And it's a similar story for both bottom lanes, to be honest, where the Aphelios and the MF are just left on the bottom side to do what they want. The difference is Hansama has Strut. He just gets to zoom into that mid lane anytime he pushes away, and provides so much more pressure at this point in the game.
Yeah, and that's been the play. They hard shove bottom. Vander usually unlocks himself first. Misfortune can make her way there, following, using the passive, but Rogue have been hesitant to get a good trigger pull there. The Ornn ultimate obviously not connecting with the targets that they wanted, and it means that the Herald will eventually go top. So it felt like Rogue were kind of dancing with the idea of possibly getting some kills, throwing the Herald into the mid lane, but instead decide just to put some gold into Finn's pocket, but he may have overstayed his welcome because of it.
The face breaker, the dunk back down, trying to walk away, trying not to trigger that tower aggro, but he does manage to take one shot coming through. Lantern coming in as well. Finn going to be in trouble. Haymaker goes wide, but Febiven just going to grab that one. Well played by the side of Misfits. They lose a few plates, but nothing more. Grabbing a kill as well, and all in all, I'd say that Herald cost Rogue more than it earned them.
Yeah, because they were, again, very unsure about how they wanted to play around it. Was it going into the mid lane? Okay, we'll put it into the top lane, and then it forced Finn to hang around much longer than he wanted to as he was waiting for the charge. And Misfits did a good job of also funneling the gold into the correct source, you know? Febiven's like, me, I'm the champion that spikes really hard on mid lane, please give it to me. And making sure that he now has that kill in the back pocket, and he can look for his mask. Haunting Guys completed now.
Yeah, and now level 10 as well too, and the level 2 on the Equalizer, obviously a huge damage spike. Base numbers on Rumble are absolutely ludicrous on that ultimate, obviously on the condition that you stand in it for the whole duration, but it just shows you how much a well-placed Equalizer can do. So see if Misfits around that power spike look to try and force a fight, because Larssen doing fine in these individual trades one-on-one, but we know the team fights where Rumble will really shine.
Yeah, Larssen also have the Abyssal mats completed now. Again, so easy for Ornn to itemize no matter what his opponent is going to be, because he can either go Abyssal or Sunfire.
Oh, that was a clean hook over the wall from Denyk. We wanted to see him off Tom Kench, and there you go, but Vander's got to respond to the zone. Stopwatch comes out, buys a bit of time. The rest of the team now on the retreat. Razork making his way over the wall. Febiven coming in, but he doesn't have the Equalizer up and available, so he can't get anything done.
And again, as soon as the big ultimates go down, Vander still technically has his. Rogue just kind of sack the fight and walk away from it. This is now complete dragon control for Misfits as 2 back-to-back Drakes.
I can hear it, Frost, just very softly in the back of my head. Silver scrapes. It's coming through. Misfits, the first time since game 1 we've seen them with such a dominant early game. And Rogue, without the Azir, without the guaranteed late game insurance, this is Misfits' game to lose. I feel like they've set up so well here in the early game.
Yeah, and it's without a lot of the kind of big pressure point that Larssen is able to put out on most of his kind of key picks that he's shown throughout the split. not having that guaranteed wave priority that his Azir and his Corki have shown.
Oh, and now Dan Dan potentially going to be in trouble here. Dragus now coming in. It looks like he's going to get one shot. Haymaker comes out, but it might be too little too late. Facebreaker comes in. He's going to dunk him back down. Inspired buys a bit more time. Dan Dan just desperately trying to find the kill, but it will not work out. So close to being a massive outplay. Rogue just barely getting that one.
That was some dirty damage. Oh, the boss. That's not fair.
Yeah, I feel like that's only going to get scarier. I actually don't have a ton of faith of Renekton versus Set inside based on what we've seen so far. Locked in on a Hans Sama. Vander now going to get hooked back. Bvoy in trouble.
No ult on Larssen.
Hans Sama yet. Ooh. Larssen just going in anyway, though. Maybe a bit of an over-aggressive TP. Denyk remains unafraid as he continues to step forward with the hook here. Mentioned earlier, normally the team who starts this up is put at a bit of a disadvantage, but with so many members of Rogue showing on the bot side, it's going to go down uncontested. Febiven level 11 as well, so got to keep our eyes on this next Misfits play.
Yeah, we'll be lucky if you're Rogue fans for Inspired to possibly get a steal here. He does have flash, so if he wants to get fancy.
Alright, go down.
Oh, you don't want that fight.
Oh, big equalizer though. Baiting out that cooldown from Febiven. The knockback is there. Ornn now coming in. Razork going to get knocked out on this one. So once again, the Herald apparently worth a single kill, as every team who's grabbed it has had to pay the price so far.
And I was wrong. He did want that fight because Larssen showed up. It was like 2v3. They didn't see Dan Dan waiting in the wings. I was like, oh no, disaster. But Larssen moseyed his way from bot lane, walked all the way through to mid lane, showed up just in the nick of time. Classic Larssen.
It's a different look, Crossturn, because we're used to Larssen roaming for the farm, one wave to another. But this time he's a bit more carnivorous, a bit more looking for that action, looking for those fights.
I mean, that's like the biggest thing about the Ornn mid is that you put a champion that has so much utility and so much power in terms of like team fight and skirmishes in the middle of the map. So hopefully he gets to impact these team fights and skirmishes more often than leaving him alone on an island and topside.
Which I frankly love. I mean, I don't love Ornn mid as a pick, but I like that Ornn gets to be in the mid lane, if that makes sense. Because this mid lane matchup without junglers, obviously not the most thrilling. But
and I'm not in a spectator client, so I can't check what ability Larssen has maxed, but I know that Nemesis and Bwipo feel very strongly that unless you're just in like the worst, most horrible matchup for Ornn mid, like a range matchup that you just get bullied out of, you max E for cooldown and damage to champions as well as wave clear, as opposed to maxing Q. Like if you're in a terrible matchup, you take the Q and you just like take the L on that one.
Yeah, for the extra range farm. And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you look at the numbers, and this is Nemesis's classic response when you ask on stream. It's like, just read, just do the math. And it's like, it does very much add up. E is a very strong ability when you max it. Very high base damage, cooldown drops significantly. You can see it paying off as Larssen's pretty comfortable matching that wave clear with Rumble in the mid lane. Not necessarily something you'd expect from an Ornn as a tankier champion.
Just about now, because he's got more points into the ability, as we now have like a roam game, like who gets out to these side lanes first, as Febiven like cheated up there, then walked back to his wave. Now Larssen's walked back up, and Dan Dan's like, I'm out. I don't see mid lane, I'm gone.
Playing it safe. Razork poking around too, and I feel like there's just so much posturing, so much moving around, looking, fishing for that single gank that can kind of break this game wide open. It's only single items for 80 carries, admittedly Hans Sama with an extra BF sword at this point, but maybe when Bvoy backs he can turn that one around. He's being a nuisance currently with the long-range snares of the Gravitum.
So in terms of team fights, because we're probably going to have one in about 50 seconds around this Infernal Drake, oh, unfortunate. Inspired smites that one away. They work fairly similar in that both these compositions can excel in fighting front to back, and they both have good zoning tools onto them to make space for the ADCs. I think a big difference is just that obviously Bvoy on an Aphelios versus Hans Sama on a Misfortune, getting more out of kind of like consistent sustained damage over time versus like the big bullet time ultimate that's going to come out of Hans Sama. I feel like it's just easier for Hans Sama, or excuse me, Bvoy to play the team fights front to back as like a traditional ADC, whereas like MF throws ult, and then a lot of times MFs just kind of like dance around and kind of wait to see when they want to duck in.
Ooh, ulti coming out here. Knockup's not going to connect.
He's out.
The TP does take him out to safety, and perfectly in time for this objective, it would appear. So Rogue left a little embarrassed there on the back end of that play. Definitely fishing for something on the top side to try to even up the scoreline.
But can they get back in time for the Infernal? And would they even fight for it without the Ornn ultimate? That is a big oopsie poopsie from Ornn. Or, excuse me, from Rogue.
Oopsie poopsie?
Yeah.
All right, whatever.
Wait.
It's fine. That's fine.
I can't say what I really think about it.
Oh, okay, that's fine. This is it's the G-rated Rusker in response to that particular predicament. Of course, going into that Dragon Pit, though, even with Infernal Drake, even with some of the walls taken down, very likely to just get immediately Rumble ulted and lose the fight. So Rogue, don't take the risk. They back off. Hansama's taking up home in mid lane. He's clearing out a bit here. Good news is, Larssen is not put in the hole that Dan Dan was when Dan Dan was playing top lane Ornn. He's already level 13. He's keeping pace so far. He's upgraded his first item, and soon he'll be able to upgrade his teammates' items as well. So some good news for the side of Rogue. Yeah,
and they're just waiting for that that 5v5 that they want. We thought we were going to get one around the Infernal. They tried to play the side lane play, were then behind the play, and lost the Infernal. Now they really want to break this mid tower. They have a slight advantage to do so because they do have a Gragas, so it is scary for Bvoy to stand here with threat of cast because of that.
He is absolutely unafraid, however. Inspired going to take a lot of poke here. He's ready for a fight to break out.
He's
Big
burning.
Rumble. Oh, ooh, sniped. Rain and fire from the skies. Misfits just going to grab that kill.
So here's what happened. Rogue are thinking like me. They're like, we could siege. We have Gragas cast. This guy can't stand here. And Misfits, they see just like the 4D chess play. They're like, nah, he can stand there. He can bait them. He'll step forward. We'll kill him. We'll also kill this guy.
Now they want to kill Finn. And I like it. The see hero, kill hero. We talked about this. What is it? Rogue like to play the map. Misfits like to play the enemy team.
Yeah. They just
Different
chase you around.
The PvE versus PvP mindset. Right now, Misfits are all about the PvP. They're just looking to fight, looking to scrap. And I mean, when you look at the itemization here, before that Black Cleaver comes through for Finn, Dan Dan's going to feel very comfy in this individual 1v1.
He went Sunfire second.
Sunfire first. He finished Sunfire before, or Bomby Cinder before he finished Blade of the Ring King. Nah, you're right, Sunfire second. I played that one out with my mouth instead of doing it in my head. Classic caster mistake, by the way. The
discussion that we've had, or that the internet's been having about like Black Cleaver versus the Trinity Force, and like it's the power curve about when you feel strong in your backs versus the actual power.
And people are freaking out, and he's like, "Bring me my Cape of Suns."
I will push, and I will not take damage.
I don't want a Tiamat. I want armor, and I'll take whatever gets me the closest to Tiamat. Here we go. And Sunfire Cape, to be fair, is a pretty obnoxious item ever since the buffs. Very good for all the tanks out there. And Set just, you know, taking the best of both worlds. The most OP bruiser item, the best tank item. Why not a little bit of both?
There's a lot of burning that's happening in this entire game. True. Rumble Ultimate, the Sunfire Capes.
Yeah. I'm waiting to see if Larssen ever gets more value out of that Call of the Forge card than the Equalizer from Febiven. Because Febiven gets closer and closer to level 16. And with the death cap there and not a whole lot of MR on the opposing team outside of the Ornn, they are going to get absolutely shredded if any piece of CC connects on them.
And I feel like, you know, there's not a lot that the backline can do for Rogue when you're facing a Rumble that has access to the death cap, because he can hit you virtually no matter what and then completely zone you from fights. So Hansama has to be really clever about how he plays out these fights outside of his ultimate, which is why, again, I really favor Misfits' team fights in terms of execution. I personally think it's just easier to execute on. More traditional.
I completely agree. But now, Cass pulling them back. Look, will not connect. Inspired. Maybe gonna try to find the kill here on the Denyk. Denyk flash out to safety. That's going to be a big snare now coming in. Febiven holding off on the ult right now. Doesn't want to overcommit. Finn getting pulled back. Febiven can wait to see if they commit before he throws the ultimate.
He's looking for the choke point.
Doesn't want to get it. Waits for Dan Dan to go in. Pulls him right back into the Equalizer. That is massive damage. Dan Dan is not going to go down to the backside. Finn desperately trying to get a kill, but that's a shutdown for Bvoy. Big money into the pocket of the Aphelios. Misfits taking a very solid fight.
Excellent job from Febiven there to hold the ultimate cooldown. He waited until Rogue stepped forward into the choke and got maximum value out of that ult by cutting them off and then just burning them to death. And that was Rogue. They threw out their big key ultimates. They had the bullet time. They threw out the Ornn ultimate. They tried to make the pick, traded the flash on Gragas cast for Denyk's flash. And then after that was done, they're like, uh-oh. I guess team fight's over. We have to try to like minimize loss here and get out.
It just feels like whoever pulls the trigger first probably loses on the re-engage if they don't instantly wipe the enemy team. And when we see it here, obviously it looks like a start with a solid pick on the Denyk, but it doesn't end up working out.
And it's also doesn't bode well for the next team fight for Rogue, because they didn't get something like Bvoy's flash. You know, now at this point, even if Bvoy gets grabbed, as long as Denyk has Lantern, you can just reposition someone to play around that Gragas cask. And here's Febiven. As soon as Rogue stepped into this choke point, the big Wombo combo, Dan Dan goes on top, the equalizer, like red carpet is laid down for them, and we immediately go into another team fight.
They get the cleanse flash. Remember, Bvoy still has flashed up, but Denyk does not. The rest of the team now trying to go down. It's another dunk down right into the midst of the team. Big damage comes in from the set, but now Bvoy's been isolated from the fight. Larssen doing his best to zone him off. That's going to be ult coming in from the Nautilus to buy Bvoy a bit more time away from the fight. Hansama cannot get anything done, though. Razork is now on the hunt.
Misfortune can't do anything.
The stun gets hit, but that's a big ult from Hansama. A clean turn, and now Rogue suddenly, their hopes are alive, their dreams are alive, but Bvoy untouched for now. This is his moment. This is his time to shine. They're turning it still. It's such a close fight, but Febiven is just shredding through the tankier members. Oh, they stack so much health, and it's just exactly what a Rumble and a Blade of the Rune King set want to see. This is Dragon Soul for Misfits. No one thought this was going to be the fight where they would take it, but here it is.
Okay, Finn has teleport, Inspired has stayed around, so they're going to try to 2v2 this. Here comes Finn.
Bvoy stepping forward into Inspired. He just wants to take the smite out of the fight. He flashes in. Big damage, but it's going to miss. Finn just going to shred through the 80 carry, and now suddenly Misfits are at a loss. They got the gold advantage in their two members, but the health just isn't there. And Rogue, they're going to take away the Infernal. They're going to deny the soul from Misfits. They're going to keep their hopes alive in this game.
And that is a clutch play there from Finn and Inspired to pull that one back as we take another look at this. So, like, watch Hansama for the majority of this fight. He just can't get into it. He can't do anything. He's dancing around. He's trying to find the perfect moment for the ultimate. And he does get a great ultimate. Like, does a lot of damage, but outside of that, Misfortune just doesn't get to really play these team fights to the same extent that Aphelios does. Imagine if this is a bullet time that isn't as successful as that, then Aphelios just gets easy mode for these team fights.
And you can see here how much damage that Dan Dan is doing here on the front lines, even as Bvoy struggles to find a new position. And you talk about it at the end of the fight here, how close that was, and you gotta wonder. Clearly, Bvoy sees the Dragon Soul winning play in his head when he flashes in trying to kill Gragas, but I wonder if it was the right choice. You gave credit to the side of Rogue, but I'm over here scratching my head if Bvoy maybe just maybe took some liberties with that play. I think it's the gentle way to say it.
I was hoping we were going to see the replay and we could really make the call if it was a misplay or an outplay. I'm going to say it was both.
He did walk face first into a Gragas body slam. A Gragas with a lot of AP. Inspired.
I mean, he thought he was going to flash and like instantly kill him, but it was the Infernal Drake that was like punching him repeatedly in the face, and then Renekton just landed on him.
He's confused. In the real world, gun always beats belly. In League of Legends, not so clear, you know? Very interesting how that works out.
That does mean that Bvoy doesn't have access to his flash, so Inspired has a really clear target that he wants to get. If Bvoy just gets deleted, obviously it's going to be a super easy team fight for Rogue to clean up. So Bvoy needs to be on his best behavior for the next team fight, at least until that cooldown comes back.
The good news is Denyk has his flash back up, so the theory that he can save the day is very much alive and well.
I mean, the flash doesn't make it easier to click the Dark Passage.
That's true, but my point, like, if they're caught in a pinch, he can flash over the wall, throw the lantern behind him. He can build a flash for his friend Bvoy. But you're right. I mean, if he just gets, if he just
okay, Denyk has just used the lantern.
Very close.
But you see that, again, as soon as Denyk uses Lantern, and he used it there to check Brush so that they could place some vision, immediately Inspired went fishing for the cask, and that's something to constantly keep track of this game.
Non-committal engage, something we haven't talked about in a long time for us. Morgana just hasn't been relevant, but that cask, as long as there's no fight in the next 60 seconds, why not throw it? Why not just try and see what you can get?
I mean, yeah, I used to call it like you play Yahtzee in League of Legends. You just like roll the dice, you lift the cup, you see what you get. That's you're a spell flinging. You're throwing out casks. Any chance you get? Did I get the Yahtzee? Nah. Throw it again.
Why not? You get unlimited tries as long as your opponent doesn't immediately force a fight on you. And luckily for Rogue, nothing to fight over right now. It could be the Baron, but no one's bold enough to try that one. Of course, they can shred through it with the Chakram available for Bvoy, as well as the burn damage on the Rumble, but still will be quite difficult, and getting yourself into the pit against either of these teams is probably a death sentence.
Rogue attempting again for this mid tower that has lasted the test of time. Okay, Inspired just about to have cast back up.
Gargoyle Stoneplate now coming in though. Bvoy trying to fire down a bit of damage on the back side. The knockup's going to be there, but the TP's coming in as well. Febiven can throw down the equalizer. Hansan with a very cheeky step forward. And again, looking for it, but they are just going to back off. They're going to give up the single kill. Larssen, though, trying to restart the fight, but Dan Dan to the side is going to make it very difficult. Finn using his ultimate as well. Not going to get anything done. Very messy exchange overall, and Febiven holding on to that ult despite so many opportunities to potentially throw it. He knows that was not the fight.
Yeah, Rogue got what they came for. They picked up the Sejuani, so they're not going to immediately rotate towards the Baron. They were trying to fish to see if they could get more and then potentially look for that play, but they did finally break the mid tower, which of course is going to give them so much more control and trying to set up and make plays and picks around this Baron area to allow them to get vision deeper on that side of the map. In terms of kind of the communication from Misfits that you were talking about, the fact that Febiven held on to the Rumble ultimate, that Dan Dan made a teleport flank and then didn't pull the trigger. You know, Misfits, again, we asked, would their instinct or their playstyle change in such a tense moment, in such a tense game? Because if they do decide to go on this teleport flank that Dan Dan's going to do, and then they lose there, that's absolutely the Baron. But instead, they hold back. The teleport's completed, Febiven doesn't drop the ultimate, and Dan Dan even kind of like peeks back in, and there's a scary moment where Vander grabs hold of him, but it doesn't amount to anything. So we are starting to see some of these nerves take over, I think.
Well, and you have to know, right? At the end of the day, if you lose this game, you're out of playoffs. That's it. That's your season done. Enjoy, you know, sitting at home, waiting for the next season to start. It's not where you want to be, but Denyk gonna hit a hook. Only on to Larssen, however, so not enough to get a fight kicked off. Remember, this is still sole point for Misfits.
Okay, no one wants to be in choke points here. You don't want to be in choke point if you're a Rogue, because you don't want the Rumble ultimate. You definitely don't want to be a choke point if you're Misfits, because you don't want to eat the Misfortune ult.
Yeah, trying to find a good ult here, but taking so much damage in the meantime. Knockback is now going to try to dunk over the wall. That's going to be a big ult to start things off, but Larssen is now firing back, and Bvoy gets shredded by Hans Samazal, basically 100-0 there. Now Misfits are on the retreat. Another chance at Dragon Soul lost. Febiven throws down the ultimate, but no one is getting hit. They're on the hunt. They're pursuing, and Rogue, just like that, they're turning the game around. Razork, just another name on the list. He is going to be able to make it out for now, but the shutdown is there. Razork on the retreat, the TP into the mid lane. They're trying to shut him off. Febiven running away. Hans Sama, though, so fast with the strut. They haven't been able to deactivate it quite yet. Rogue will retreat, but a clean fight coming in for Rogue.
And now what are Rogue going to do? Looks like they're going to take the safest play, the safest option. They're going to grab the Infernal, not immediately rush towards the Baron, because Denyk did a good job getting Razork out and immediately back into base so that they could try to contest it. Although, maybe they just walk towards it anyway.
Still very strong. 3 seconds left on Bvoy. Has his flash and his barrier up for the next fight, so should not get one shot again. But we can take a look back at this, and doesn't quite start the way that Dan Dan would like it to.
Yeah, they keep trying to find, or Misfits keep trying to find these flanks to get into the back line, because you're right, Hansama's ultimate is just doing so much damage. And I think what Dan Dan's hunting for is he is looking for the Misfortune, but Misfits just pile in here for so long, and then the Ornn ultimate connects on Bvoy as it passes back through, and in the air, he dies to Hansama's ultimate. Like, he doesn't get a chance to react or even play. I think he still has flash.
Yeah. And here, I mean, obviously the cleanup is pretty easy. Razork getting out is a miracle, as you said, backed up by Denyk there in the exchange.
I just feel like Misfits are really being punished by inferior team fighting comparatively to Rogue. Like, inferior setup of team fighting and execution comparatively to Rogue.
Well, and it's interesting because we see so many instances, or we saw that instant in mid lane Frostgreen where they didn't force and they played back, and it was like, okay, that's kind of the right choice. But in that instance, they're trying too hard to force. They walk right into the funnel that we said no one wants to be in. Hans Sama just obliterates their team with that ultimate. And now, the gold, which was dead even for so long, slightly in favor of Rogue. They've got 2 Infernals as well, slowly working towards a soul of their own. And Misfits don't really have any control around the pit at this moment.
And what's worse is now, I believe the locket was just completed for Larssen here, and that, I mean, Rumble's damage at that point just evaporates. Ornn presses locket for his team, and Misfits no longer do the big damage that they want to. So, at this point, I think the itemization might take over, where Misfits may have lost their grip on potentially winning these team fights, even if they did execute correctly. Like, all eyes are on Bvoy right now. He needs to be the hero. It can no longer just be Febiven due to locket completion.
And he was sort of the hero in game 1. Maybe needs to show it to us again, but obviously the Ornn items are also coming through for Rogue, so what looks like just about dead even gold. Slightly in their favor, arguably because of the extra stats of Infernal, but then when you add in the Molten Edge, the additional Zanya's buff, the Obsidian Cleaver, Rogue are clearly at an item advantage.
Yeah, I think Rogue, in my opinion, in terms of itemization, have pulled the game away from Misfits. That you have to out-execute, because I think if it's just even footing, like, Rogue just cruise control win at this point.
And you can see that Dan Dan also is playing with a lot of respect. He was much more comfortable in that 1v1 matchup at the start of the game, but now as Renekton gets more and more items and more lifesteal under his belt, Dan Dan isn't really in a position to contest him. He does not have any healing reduction. Finn? Changes as Finn tries to go too deep here. He's going to dash to safety. He's now running for the hills, but now the rest of the team instantly realizes something's wrong. Finn shouldn't be there. They know that the Baron's been started. They can sense it. Blue Trinket will come down, it'll force Rogue away, but Finn remains on the bottom side, acting as another pressure point. Misfits are the team now, forced to make a decision. How do they want to play this one out? And it looks like eyes might just be set on the Baron. Finn does not have an ultimate for the fight to come.
Yeah, but unfortunately, because it's an Ornn mid as opposed to an Azir that Larssen is normally playing, it's not like you have the same speed over Baron burn that Rogue would previously have in some of their compositions, so they're unable to trade kind of the numbers advantage top side of the map for immediately turning on the Baron. It does save Finn's life.
True. So well played by Rogue overall, I think, to see the opportunity there. Finn was going to buy more time for the team. They're going to make the most of it to try to take the Baron. But the map has relatively reset. Hansama going to steal away the red buff here and leap over the wall. 1:30 until Infernal. And once again, that is soul point for Misfits and the Baron as well. One of these objectives is going to have to be contested.
I think that's kind of the big window back in the game for Misfits in terms of like the 5v5 team fight is getting access to Soul Infernal or even access potentially to Elder, as another team fight should be popping up here. Everyone's
Razork
got flashes.
Going over the wall, right onto Inspired, but the ulti's already been burned. They're not the start they wanted. I think they were hoping to make a very explosive pick there, take the jungler out of the equation, open up some potential objectives.
And that was kind of the one window that they had since the Infernal spawns in 50 seconds, so Razork should have his ultimate back up there. You throw it out, see what you can get, maybe you can rotate it into a Baron, but otherwise no harm done as we are, again, like you said, setting up for both the Infernal and Baron.
Good news for Misfits is Bvoy 4 now is empowered by the Elixir there, has the additional life steal from the Elixir of Wrath, healing of physical damage rather. And then on top of that, the Last Whisper, so can start to shred through some of the tankier members of the enemy team. But honestly, my eyes are glued to Bvoy. What anyone else is doing is just, it feels almost inconsequential, except if Febiven gets caught out. Damage now coming in. Febiven not quite going to get knocked back. The Zhonya's comes in, but it's too little too late. The shutdown on the Febiven, and that should be all that Rogue need to move in for a winning fight. And then forced to back away. Infernal next in their sights. They're going for triple Infernal. They want to match soul point for soul point. The Misfits moving up towards Baron, threatening. They know if Rogue commit too hard for the Dragon that they can try to threaten another objective.
Oh no, Inspired over the wall.
Oh, the flash body slam. Bvoy trying to make it out to safety. No, not again. Another 80 carry making the play that loses his team the game and instantly Finn is into the backside. The dunk down, but Finn's just going to dash out to safety. Dan Dan cannot get it done. Finn locked up. Zhonya's perfectly to dodge out on the ultimate, and that might just be it. Rogue can break down this tower. Maybe they go for an objective to follow. It's 40 seconds left on Bvoy, the biggest source of damage for Misfits.
That point in mid, as you were saying, has taken so many games. Like, that is the deadliest point on the map. Every single 80 carry is falling for that trick of someone swinging around with a cheeky control ward, gets behind them, they're just trying to wave clear, boom, dead. Now it's free Baron.
10K, getting lower and lower. They don't have a chance to do it. Misfits instead, they're going to try to trade for soul, hoping they can get something back in return. But we went from neck and neck, dead even. Rogue slowly building advantages over time to 5K for Rogue, just like that.
And good job from Rogue to split up their pieces, to peek onto the Infernal, make sure that, as you were saying, Misfits couldn't just immediately run towards the soul point, try to get something for their trouble. Instead, they do get first position here. So this is kind of like, this is last dance for Misfits. Their spring split is on the line. They probably have one more team fight left in them. This one has to count.
If they let Rogue get quad Infernal soul point, they're never winning another fight, because at that point, Ornn is a damage threat that you have to respect.
So what are you looking for? The CC pieces between Razork and Denyk have to hit critical targets.
Razork hitting the jungler there. Big ult coming back on the upside. Febiven on the backside with the equalizer, laying down a ton of damage from Dan Dan as well. Hansama zoned out of the fight. He can still use the ultimate when he wants to. They're pulling away. Finn is taking out Bvoy. That's going to be massive. And Misfits, they're falling apart. They've got nothing left in the tank. Baron buff backing them up, as well as triple Infernal for the side of Rogue. And now it's a desperate final stand for Misfits. Can they make their way out of this one? It does not look like it. And that should be it. Frostgirl and Rogue barreling down the mid lane, looking to end this series and face Origin next week.
And it was just too little too late. Rogue had out-itemized, they had outscaled past Misfits' composition. They play it slow, they play it control, and they clean up the series 3-1.
Push comes to shove. Misfits simply could not match. A little bit of craziness, a little bit of chaos in game one gets them one win, but it's Rogue dominance through every other game as the 3-1 closeout commences.
And Misfits, you know, credit to them. They did throw some wrenches into the plan. They showed Bvoy on the Callista. They showed that we can try to carry through the bot lane. Rogue struggled themselves there, but they kind of went back to basics. They were giving Finn these big priority picks, allowing him to show up on his Kled, giving him the Renekton repeatedly, and showing that if you don't shut them down into the lane phase, that they get to play exactly the type of game that they want. And once they start setting up the objectives, they play Formula League of Legends too well, and Misfits just couldn't keep up with them on a fundamental level.
No, it was absolutely the case. I thought we were going to game 5 after I saw that early game, after I saw Finn falling ahead once again, but he did not let himself get put too far down. The teamfight execution was simply better from the side of Misfits, or from the side of Rogue, and once again we see another situation where single missteps from hyper carries. You said it before, and I just want to say it again. In that mid lane, in that exact spot, cost entire series. You cannot die on 3 or 4 item Aphelios and expect to win a game. It's so much pressure for the first best of 5 for this team for this series, and it just did not work out.
But this does mean that the road continues for Rogue. They are still chasing the fact that they want to prove that they deserve to sit with the big boys, the Origins, the G2s, the Fanatics, and now the Mad Lions need to be included into that list. Because of how the bracket has formed up, this does mean that Rogue will face off against Origin, 2 teams that I think have a very similar stylistic play. I think we've jokingly referred to Rogue as kind of baby Origin, so that should be a very interesting match.
Have to see who's the baby after that matchup. That's enough from us. Thank you, Frosk. I loved it, every minute of it. We'll send it over now to PGO.
Thank you very much, and welcome everybody to the LEC post-game lobby. I'm Shox, and I'm joined by Ender and by Finn, if everything is working correctly. Hello, Finn.
Yes. Hello. I think it should be working fine.
Yay! I was scared for a second. You did it. Good stuff. Hey, Finn, congratulations. I mean, wonderful by Rogue. 3-1. It was a bit up and down, though. Why do you think, in the end, you guys as a team were stronger than Misfits today?
I think generally we are just stronger in a fundamental level. I think they have a lot of silly rotation sometimes, and it can cost them a lot if we realize them and punish them accordingly. I think the reason we lost game 1 was because we went for this really crazy dive in level 2, which kind of put us too far behind in the jungle tempo, and then it was hard to play for our lanes as we normally would. But yeah, I think we just moved better around on the map today.
Ender?
Yeah, it also just seemed like you guys like had the winning team fights, especially in the mid game. Like in games 2 and 3 especially, there were like these big 5v5s that broke out around like the 15 to 20 minute dragon as well, where you guys like with the Azir just had the better approach into the fights as well, which was just like impressive to see going up here against Misfits. Sometimes they put themselves like tough positions, you were able to find out Bvoy and whatnot, and that ended up netting you guys the win more often than not.
We did see throughout the series that there seemed to be a shift. Of course, the first game was lost, but as the series progressed, there was more and more pressure put on your shoulders to win not only your lane matchup versus Dan Dan, but then carry a lot of these team fight situations. How do you think you dealt with the pressure and how you played in the series, Finn?
I think I did pretty well, especially game 2 and 3. I think I really snowballed my lane matchup accordingly and kind of transferred that to the team as well. Game 4, it didn't go as well as we planned, but we still managed to bounce back because the rest of the team kind of helped me get back into the game as well. And I think by us being so strong in the game, we just managed to win every fight because we just had better items and better stats. Not really because of our champions.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. Oh, okay, I see. So we've had a lot of talks already with players about kind of the online situation and how it may influence how nervous they are or how they are playing. How did you experience playing from home?
Well, for sure it was a lot less nervosity, if that's a word. It felt... Yeah. I mean, last 2 weeks you kind of saw it from us. We didn't really play like we used to. It took some time to adjust for us to find the proper balance between like realizing the importance of the match, realizing what's at stake. And I think it really cost us a lot the last 2 weeks against Schalke and SK and G2 Fnatic, where we lost all 4 games. But this week we took some other measures to make sure we were better prepared on the day, so we could actually show up and perform like we normally would, so we wouldn't get like held back.
Yeah, so you talk about like sort of like changing mentality and whatnot. I'm curious because like obviously a lot of people say, hey, you're playing at home like that. Maybe it just feels like scrims to people. Is that what you're feeling, or is it something different? Because I bet like a lot of people can relate to just like feeling different whether than working from home and whatnot. Like I know I definitely feel that, and like it is like difficult sometimes to try and get back into the mindset. So is it something different, or is it like just, hey, we're showing up, we're playing online, it feels like a scrim?
I mean, it's not really that it feels like a scrim. It just feels very different. I don't know how to describe it properly, because you just feel very natural in a way. It's not like you feel the pressure. You don't really feel the crowd. You don't really feel the same kind of, not dopamine, but adrenaline. I think it just doesn't kick in the same manner. So that's why I feel like there's less energy and less stress in comms in a way, which is really good. But there's also a lot of like realization, as I said before, that you don't really feel the impact of the game.
Well, I have a welcome surprise for you. Even without the pressure or the excitement from the crowd, you still played phenomenally, and the people on Twitter voted you for the Kia Player of the Series, Finn. Congratulations. Did you expect to win?
Did I expect it? I'm not sure. I think both. I mean, the whole team played really well today, especially Larssen and Inspired. They really played well. So that is for sure deserve a shout out. But I'm grateful. I got to finally play Kled and not run it down like I did against Fnatic. So it's always nice to see.
Do you have more fun playing the Kled or 3 games or Renekton?
I mean, blind picking ranked on 3 games in a row. I know someone that would be really angry on that, but I think it's a strong champion. So as long as you keep snowballing with it and play proper, then it's a strong champion for sure. And I think, as we saw, they didn't really find a good answer into it in the series. They picked like Set into it.
Did we lose you? Or did I? Oh,
Finn?
where did he go? Finn?
Where'd he go?
Where did he go?
Come back, please.
Oh no, am I gonna have to tech support again?
Well, you know, here's the thing though. He's at least better than Bwipo.
Yeah,
right? He lasted like way longer than Bwipo. That's a win in my book. Wait, did LS get him, or he was just talking about him?
I mean, he's going to come back in a second. Ender, I'm going to ask Finn when he comes back, but I think it is quite interesting that we said before the series that Rogue doesn't necessarily have one player they play through. Finn is also, he's not overconfident. He says, well, my whole team deserved it. But it does seem like he is developing more and more into the player they should or can play through, if that's what he wants or not. It seems to be happening and seems to be successful for them.
No, I definitely think that is something they can do, and they showed today. You know, even hearing him talk about how they tried to go for the very early bot lane dive in game number 1 that backfired super heavily. Then they had to reevaluate going through the rest of the series, and I think that he is the type of player, almost like if you think about how Bwipo takes, you know, what he does in his lane and tries to spread that around the map. I see a lot of similarities there with Finn. Whether it is, you know, the Kled, the signature pick is super easy to do that on, but also on things like the Renekton with the teleports into bot lane, or just sometimes he'll reset and instead of walking back to top lane with his teleport up, he'll just start walking towards bot lane, get a gank off, go for a Drake, and then TP back topside. It is a different style that we don't see from every top laner, but it can be super effective at snowballing your team. Yeah,
F in the chat because Rogue's internet in the house seemed to have died. I mean, it's good that it happens after Berlin internet. Am I right? So let's move into the bracket. I think
we're cursed.
Yeah. Let's move into the bracket and maybe he comes back. I certainly hope so because I want his opinion on the next matchup. Now, Ender, Rogue will be going up against OG, and we've called Rogue as Frosker and said mini OG, for a while. And there are 2 teams that like to take it methodical, play towards those team fights, and are not afraid of stalling and letting things go late. So are we in for a snooze fest, or what's going to happen, and who's stronger at playing that style?
Honestly, like, this game, I think, will have very different styled of games, because there's for sure going to be, like, a couple Azir Corki games, or Ornn versus Azir games in the middle. Like, there's going to be some boring ones, I have no doubt in my mind, but I think it will heavily switch up depending on how they want to play through the mid lane with Larssen, because like Larssen today was going for a lot of his scaling picks, but in the past we have seen him look really, really good on more stylish things like the Kiana and whatnot. So I would like to see Rogue sort of adapt going into next week, because the way Fnatic played was all about getting Nemesis out of mid lane, making the gap between mid laners look really, really big and influencing the rest of the map. And I think that is something that we don't see all the time from Larssen, but is definitely in his wheelhouse.
And then tell me about those other matchups, right? Because things have been thrown completely into disarray because of the results of this week. What do you think about Mad Fnatic?
Oh, Mad Fnatic is going to be a really fun one. So I don't want to overhype Mad Lions coming into this series. Like, they had a really solid performance against G2, but I also don't know if, like, that obviously wasn't peak G2 that we saw. Now, that being said, I think Mad Lions have shown a lot of really good strengths. I think their jungler in Shadow is absolutely phenomenal, and their bot lane is stepping up as well. So, like, those matchups I think are going to be really, really close. Now, we were talking about this in the pre-show too. I do still think it is going to be Fnatic-sided, primarily if we're focusing in on top and mid laners. Nemesis and Bwipo, A, they're super good in their individual lanes, but B, they're two of the highest impact players in terms of spreading their influence towards the rest of the map, weighted towards top lane especially. So that's where I think the series is going to break open for Fnatic, and why I favor them in the matchup.
Oh, awesome. And we get Finn's opinion as well, because he's back. I hear the internet died. Finn, it's happened often in Berlin.
It happens. It's not much we can do.
Happens. Yeah.
So
I just want to talk through your next matchups and the bracket with you. Sorry, go ahead.
I was asking what you were thinking. So,
okay, I wanted to ask you first about your matchup versus OG.
Okay, so OG Fnatic, right? It's a bit confusing since I died before, but...
No, OG Rogue.
OG Rogue,
OG
right.
Rogue.
I mean, I think they play very slow. OG. They play really controlled in a way, and I think it really got exposed by Fnatic in the series, especially game 4. I think we sometimes had the same problems as them. I think game 3 we should have ended maybe 7 minutes earlier if we were playing properly, but the game kind of stalled out for a long time. So both teams are kind of struggling with the same issues, so I think it's going to be the team that's stronger on the day and is better prepared and can see who finds advantages through that draft, possibly. But I think...
So then how do you feel feel about the... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I think my voice is delayed. You can go ahead.
All right, yeah, no problem. Okay, how do you feel about the top lane matchup, right? Because of course Alphari's got a lot of hype going behind him right now. We often talk about Alphari, and he's like a very lane focused player where Xerxes, you know, they'll save counter pick for him, or just get him the free blind Renekton that no one can answer, or you know, spend resources up top towards him. Whereas you, I feel like, are a player that like you do play for the lane, but often like you're also like teleporting down bot lane, you know, off a reset you're running towards Drake, like these types of things. Like how do you feel going into that 1v1?
Well, I thought he was really, really good. He's always applying a lot of pressure in lane. He always wants to put the matchup to the limit to make sure he can get as much of a lead he can, whether that's putting the jungle attention and pressuring dives or something else. So I think it's going to come down to draft a lot, who can secure a strong top lane matchup and who can play better with the jungler. Because I think against Fnatic, I don't think Xerxes and Alphari had the best... They didn't work very well together in that series. So if that's something me and Inspired can expose by showing up on a day, I think that's a good place to start for how to beat them.
Okay, fantastic. I think we're gonna cut down PGL here. There were some technical issues, but thank you so much for bearing with us, Finn, and a massive congratulations on the victory.
Thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you everyone from home for joining us as well. This was the first round of playoffs only. We still have 2 weeks to come, and I hope you've enjoyed our upgraded desk with the cameras and just the show overall. We'll be here next week for more action. It's been crazy. It's going to get more crazy. But if you want to watch more League of Legends tonight, we have Cloud9 versus 100 Thieves in the LCS. And we'll be back next Friday with Rogue facing off against Origin. Good night, everyone. Thank you.